All right. I mean, thanks for joining. I actually did some research, and the funny thing is, so I mean, you've been to a few of these, and I was like looking at it, and then you said something very particular. You said that you're more of a tire guy. You don't really care about cars. You just check about tires and so on. And actually, shit, I'm the same. I look at tires only. When I drive past, I will see, people's sidewall and I see people's tread. As a tire designer, I look at it and say, oh, yeah, so I have to talk to Jared. That's me.
Well, that's how I learned a lot about tires is I would start like walking around parking lots and seeing what tire size goes on what car. And so I could start to understand the fitment guides in my head. And so every time I would end up going on vacation and I'm walking along the streets, I would always notice what tire size on what car. And so now my fitment knowledge is pretty good in terms of original equipment.
You have a memory fitment, so like, what this car, the size, so what I do is I just download everything from all multiple website. I mean, you have, I mean, Tire Agent also do quite a good job. You have all possible fitment and trims. Trim, like you say, trim is very important. And then yeah, because I mean nowadays OE has 17-inch, 18, 19-inch for the same car.
Well, I mean, I'm 39, right? So when I started, the most popular size at that time, if I remember correctly, was like a 225 60 16, 195 65 15, 195 60 15. And now when you look at like more popular stuff, it's 17, it's 18, and in some cases it's 20 inch. When you're talking about the SUVs, right? The SUVs are moving into 20 inch here, at least on the East Coast for sure, and in the Midwest.
I think one of the biggest drivers, especially in the American growth, is the rise of the SUVs. No?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I read somewhere that 65 or 70% of new vehicles on the road that are being sold are SUV or light truck, which is crazy because when I was a kid, all you saw was like sedans, and it looked like for a while that they were even getting smaller, and then out of nowhere they just started to get bigger, and so now obviously the tires that go with it are bigger.
But the funny thing is, I mean, I'm staying in Malaysia right now, so the most popular sizes are still 14 and 15 inch. We are a
Really?
bit slow. Yeah, we are a bit slow. I mean, totally different market, but yeah, 14 and 50 inch are the one of the biggest volume right now.
I actually remember like so 20 years ago. I mean, it wasn't popular to be clear. It was not popular, but I remember I used to sell like quite a few of like 205 70 14.
Oh,
So now keep in mind it was not very popular, but I still sold some. Today, it is so rare when I see any of those. Because also the cars were different, right? Like Saturn was a car that was being sold on the road at that time. You don't see any of those. Mercury, Crown Vic, even though it was older at that time when I got in, it was still being sold, and I believe that was like a 225 60 16 at the time. Lincoln Continental was a very popular car at that time. But today it's very different, right? Today it's Honda CRV, Tahoe, it's Silverado, Camry's still very popular, but that has evolved in the size that goes on that one.
does any of your colleagues actually ask you what size, if they cannot find? Maybe Derek knows about it.
Well, okay, so here's what we do get at times from customers. They'll ask us believe it or not, that's how I sometimes, so I get up to date on fitments by doing a few different things. I play around with my own website and I put in all different year makes and model. When I'm on the street, obviously I look at what tire sizes are on the cars. Now I don't like stare at it for hours, but like as I'm walking, if I see a car, I'll notice sometimes, right? Customers calling in, asking if we have a tire size, that sometimes clues me in. And then also, the spec sheets or the websites of tire manufacturers. I'm starting to learn about new sizes that, I would not have maybe have seen before. So I kind of put everything together in my head. Now, I'm great with numbers unless you ask me about someone's birthday. If you ask me about someone's birthday, I'm terrible. But if you ask me about tires and fitment, I'm pretty good.
Understood. So maybe come back to the main topic. So I mean, I think most of at least my audience, at least me, wanted to know was like, why did you start Tire Agent? Give me the most simplistic view.
Well, yeah, there were a few reasons. For one, so at that time I was working at my family's company. And As much as I loved it, you also butt heads with family at times, right? When you work with them, which is natural, totally normal. But I also felt very complacent. I didn't feel like my life was evolving the way I was hoping it was going to evolve. And I don't know really what that meant exactly. But then one day I went on LinkedIn, I pitched an idea to a stranger, and a week later he offered to be an investor. And he said I had like 24 hours to think about it. I didn't even need that long. I thought about it instantly because I'm thinking to myself, how often is a stranger going to write you a check without even really knowing you? I mean, he knew me for a few calls and one in-person meeting, but also I didn't feel like I was using my full potential, if that makes sense. And I wanted to do something different for the industry, and so everything kind of like came together at the right time. I think it was like frustration, feeling lost, a whole bunch of different emotions at the time. And then when I got that offer, I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, yes. And
That's
so
why they call
that's
it angel investing, right?
Yeah. Well, this turned out to be a venture capital, believe it or not. It turned out to be a VC.
Okay.
Yeah, it turned out to be a VC firm that specializes in early stage startups. But I was
Okay.
so early, I had like barely anything.
When you have
um,
experience, okay.
yeah, so yes, I had experience, and I am a big believer looking back on them investing in me and also what I've seen with a lot of startups in the world is domain experts, which is what it's called when you've been in an industry for a certain amount of time and you know it inside and out. Domain experts are the best type of founder to invest in. I
Hmm.
like those founders because they have a very good sense of the industry. It's not a guessing game. They know what they're walking into. And from what I have seen anecdotally, it seems to be more successful. Now, that being said, for me, I had a lot of different emotions at the time. I kind of went with what my gut was telling me. Keep in mind, I had just bought a home. I had a lot of fixed bills. If I had a family, I probably would not have taken that risk. But, considering where I was in life, it just made sense.
Okay. And did you, I mean, knowing that the market very well, I mean, we have Tire Rack, you have Simple Tire, you have Easy Tire, all these competitors, you know,
Yeah.
what what kind of pathway you wanted to at least visions you want tire agent to be, knowing
Well,
all of them.
yeah. I mean, my philosophy has always been I don't really care about what competitors are doing. To this day, I still don't care. I stay focused on me. And if there are people already in the space, that just tells me the space is working. That shouldn't scare me away. If you never want to be the first to do something because when you're the first, you're experimenting, right? But if there are already a lot of competitors, then the market's pretty established. And that's a good enough clue for me to be like, okay, I'm jumping in. So my advice to people in general is who gives a crap if there are a lot of competitors? You just have to do it. You have to create your own lane within that industry and you have to focus on you. And that's the best way to succeed.
Okay, cool. And if you mind, could you roughly just recreate the pitch that you did, in simple words,
Yeah.
what was it?
So my pitch was something like, you don't know me, but I saw you speak years ago. I have an idea for a tire business. That was like the early stages. And then the guy I was talking to, he writes back to me and he says, send me a deck. I didn't really fully understand what a deck was at that time. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't really know. It could have been something in the back of a house. I had no idea. So I ended up hiring someone to help me put together a deck for my Word document. Now, the original business idea was a search engine for tires, wheels. That's what it was. So think of like a Google shopping type of experience. Really was not the best idea, to be honest with you, because there was really no really good way of making money. Plus, it was super hard. Whenever you do a two-sided marketplace, it's just very difficult. But then, as we were trying to, when I went through this tech accelerator program, it was run by a firm called Entrepreneur Roundtable Accelerator. When I went through them, they kind of coached me on how to think about business, on how to think about fundraising, and then through that process, I realized, okay, this is not going to work. Let me do something else. Let me get into selling tires. And so then we pivoted to be a mobile tire installer, and that didn't really scale quick. I mean, it's a good business, but the problem is when you're starting in one hyper local market at a time, it's just very hard to get off the ground. It's not impossible, it's just hard. And so we thought to go national. But it also depends on your goals, right? Like my goal was to build a huge company. I didn't know it was going to be this big, but I knew I wanted to be a big company, whatever that meant at the time. And so that's what I was focused on. Keeping, if you are the type where you just want like a good work-life balance, then you probably want to go more in the route of physical location or a mobile tire installer, something more hyper local. And then it's totally fine. It just wasn't aligned with the goal that I had to get because when you have investors, you have to scale quick. If you're just bootstrapping by yourself, you don't have to. So that's the original pitch was not very sophisticated. In fact, I would say I'm kind of surprised they invested in me when I look back on it, but it worked out for them and it worked out for me.
Did you remember your first tire sale, at least from tire agent side?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
What size
It
was
was a
it?
it was a 195 55 16, and I remember the first one as tire agent as a whole. I don't remember the first one on the website, but I remember the first one that we sold like when we had tireagent.com when it was a mobile installer, and it was the 195 55 16 Firestones that went on a Prius. I don't think I'll ever
Oh,
forget that.
cool, interesting. And I mean, so when I was reading through your story, and of course, some of the podcasts I do to prepare, you mentioned that, I mean, a couple of years back, you had some difficult times. Um, could you explain a bit what was the problem and how you managed to solve it?
Yeah, I had a few different problems. Oh crap, I'm just remembering now. It was either a Mini Cooper or a Prius. I can't remember which one. Anyway, okay. Back to the question.
You get mixed in your head,
Yeah,
intertwine
I'm trying to remember the
neurons.
exact. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact vehicle. I remember it was a Mini Cooper or a Prius. But back to your question. Yeah, went through a tough time because I was trying to fundraise, trying to raise investment past the initial 100K that they gave me, and no VC really wanted to invest in me. Mostly because I didn't have a tech background. I wasn't experienced in running a startup. They didn't like the industry. They thought there was too much competition. They thought the margins were too small. They thought everything in the world. Doesn't really matter, right? And so as I'm fundraising, I'm running out of money because, you know, when you quit a job, what do people do, right? They build up expenses based on the amount of money they're coming in, right? So when I quit my job, I still had to pay for my car. I still had to pay for my health insurance. I still had to pay for my mortgage, right? Like those things don't go away just because you switch jobs. So I was running through my income, I mean my savings pretty quickly. And I got to the point where I couldn't afford my mortgage, I couldn't afford food, I couldn't afford anything, and I was selling my personal belongings on, Facebook Marketplace, or there was a couple apps out there that were similar at the time, and I literally was just meeting strangers, selling my stuff just to get by. So the tough part was I think I got like I got a warning from the bank that they were gonna take my home if I don't catch up my bills in a certain amount of time. And I was like freaking out, to be honest with you. I mean, I was not very calm. I was trying to meditate, trying to get myself, together. And I just thought to myself, like, me freaking out is not going to help the situation. Like, the best thing I could do is stay focused, keep doing what I'm doing, and just hope things fall into place. And that's what happened. So after a few months, we ended up someone had seen me pitch my idea on a stage in front of 1,000 people. That was part of the program I was in with the 100K. I got to pitch my idea on stage in front of like 1,000 people. Someone had come back from vacation. They put a group together, and they put together like 750,000 at that time. And what that did was it allowed me to like catch up on my bills, like eat, which was a nice refreshing moment at that time. So that was like one moment, and then the other tough times we had is, during COVID, nobody was buying tires for the first couple months because nobody was driving. And so we ended up losing a ton of money there, but we ended up reinventing ourselves. Every time things got tough, we never just kept playing the same song as Tire Agent. Like we kept reinventing ourselves. So, if you think about our pivots, we were a search engine, pivoted. We were doing B to B to C tire road hazard protection, pivoted. We were a mobile tire installer, pivoted, right? Like we just kept switching the goal. We kept switching the goalpost every time because I really believe in the concept fail fast. Like if you're doing the
Understood.
same idea and it's not working, what are you doing? Like you got to keep moving until something's going to hit. And so that's what we did. We just kept moving and we kept, and then even today with Tire Agent, when things look like it's getting tough, I mean, thankfully it's a different point today and different reasons why we do it. But whenever we're not happy with certain results, we either launch new features, we do something with brands, we change some of the experiences, we A/B test. Like we're just constantly moving. And so that's been the biggest part of like how we've survived tough times is we don't stay complacent. We just keep moving and keep changing and keep evolving.
And, and it's tied to the sales, I guess. So all these end results are just trying to drive sales so that you get the margins and then you can pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always about sales, believe it or not. Like, I focus a lot on customer experience, and that does not always translate into immediate sales. I focus a lot of times on post-sale experience. Like,
Ah,
is the customer being serviced quick enough on warranties? Are they being answered properly with questions post-purchase? Are they getting all their questions answered during the purchase? Do they like the experience? Like it's not always about the purchase. Sometimes it's about just helping the customer because the way I look at it is customers are buying tires once every few years, right? So the best thing you can do is make it a very memorable experience before, in the middle, and after.
okay. I mean, so the one point when I was researching was Agent has one of the best ratings when it comes to Trustpilot and so on. Magnificent job you did. But how do you scale customer service? I know, Jared, you cannot pick up every single call. So how do you transfer your kind of philosophy to your handpicked soldiers,
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I did pick up every call. In the very
I
beginning, in the
believe
very
so.
beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. No, now it's about the culture of the company, right? Because you need people to buy into what you're doing so they're equally as passionate about helping the customer as you are. Now, naturally, as a founder, CEO, business owner, as you hire more people, you lose some of that. Like that's just natural. But you do your best to translate and take care of your people so that they want to see the business succeed. So they want to give customers the best experience. So there's a few different ways we do this. We have a very sophisticated training. So the training to become a customer service person is multiple weeks. It's not just a few days in an FAQ sheet. Like it's we have a trainer, we have a curriculum, like it's very detailed. We have now an AI we have now an AI trainer also that mocks what a customer how they would act. A good customer, a
I
bad
see.
customer, a nice customer, a rude customer. So we've just started to introduce that, which is pretty cool. So it replicates exactly the way a customer would react. And that's been really good so far. Then the other thing is really good leadership. I mean, you have to hire good people that can then present the culture, present the principles and the mission that we're doing to the next people. So it's training, it's culture, it's continuous training because we don't just stop after we train the people. And then also we're if some like there are certain things we will not tolerate from a customer service agent. Like if somebody is rude to a customer, they're gone. Like they're gone. Maybe we'll give them one warning and coach them if their mentality was not meant to be rude, if it's just like bad tone or whatever, that's coachable. Okay? But if it's like they snapped at a customer or something like that, that's inexcusable. So we just try to really hold that true because I'm under the philosophy that like the customer's problem, like what they went through, that like customers can sometimes have a bad day, right? Like we all can have a bad day. But what they did in their life doesn't mean you did a bad job. And so the customer service agent has to have empathy while also being able to separate the customer's emotions from the execution of solving the problem. And we really focus on solving the problem. Whereas I think a lot of companies, when you call them, they give you like the runaround. They transfer you to a million people. Like, no, we want to solve what the issue is. So you have a good experience, and then hopefully you recommend your friends.
How critical is the prior knowledge to your training, you know, especially
Well,
product knowledge?
prior to training with us, it's not critical at all. In fact, a lot of times I like it when they come in with no knowledge because then they're like a blank slate and we could teach them. It also depends where they are in the company. If they're in customer service, I don't want them to have knowledge. I want them to come with a blank slate. If they're higher up, it depends on the role. And in some cases, it's very useful. In some cases, it doesn't matter, right? So we train them on tire knowledge. We train them on wheel knowledge. We train them on the architecture of how the tire works. So it's part of our curriculum. So I don't it's not knowledge. It's not important in the beginning. As
Understood.
long as they
And
can leave the training absorbing everything that they've learned from us. That's the most important thing.
understood. And coming to the customers, so I would just give you an example. Like in Europe, the customers who buy tires are very well knowledgeable. They know press tests, they know the magazines. They will go to a shop, they will look at the magazine and tell you, I want tire or something like that. Yeah? In Malaysia or Asia, it's purely recommended by the dealer, no? No prior knowledge at all. How is it like in America?
I would say it's a mixed bag. You get some people who understand some knowledge, and I would say it's driven by a couple different things. For us, I can't speak about the other online retailers, but I could speak about, Tire Agent. We get a lot of customers that use our recommendations. Like I would go as far as to say that if I had to guess, it's maybe a third of the customers use our recommendations. I mean, we get tons of phone calls asking for recommendations, plus they use some of the recommendations on the website. So for us, it's very impactful. If I were to think about online retail as a whole, I think it's a few different things. I think a lot of customers start out not knowing anything, but then they use online research to teach themselves. And then a lot of times I think it becomes, one of two cases, which is either A, who has the cheapest product of the one that they want, or they're using a couple sites for recommendations. And I think we are one of those sites that people use for recommendations because I see the data and a lot of people use our recommended stuff that either our phone agents tell them or the website tells them. So for us, it's very important on the recommendation side. But I do think I do think customers today are more knowledgeable than they used to be because information is more accessible.
Understood. And this recommendation, are you based on some kind of testing data or how did you do it?
Yeah, so as part of it's from the training, right? So customers here care a lot about a couple different factors. They care about mileage warranty, because remember, if you're in a more rural area, you're driving a lot of distance, right? So they care about mileage warranty. They care about features of the tire. So if you look at some of the all-terrain tires, if someone's doing a lot of off-roading, then sidewall protection is very important to them. If they're in a very big snow area, then all weather as opposed to all season is very important to them. So we kind of look at the features of a tire, and that's how we recommend.
What's your opinion about mileage warranty? I mean, it's very unique only to US and Canada. And before I was even in the American market, I was surprised about this mileage warranty. Obviously, one marketer told me that if you have no mileage warranty, you sell no tires. But I'm just amazed from the whole mechanics, But I would like to know your opinion. What do you think about mileage warranty?
Yeah. If you're the cheapest product in the US that anyone has ever seen, then mileage warranty probably doesn't matter and you'll sell the people who want the cheapest product, right? But I think mileage warranty as a whole is a correct statement. I think if you are some sort of brand that's trying not to be the the cheapest in the market, you need to have some mileage warranty. And the reason is we're in a country where people drive a lot, like a lot. And whether you're talking about whether you're talking about rural, the distance that people are driving, it's so impactful. Now, Do I think people should say, hey, I'm buying this tire, it has to last me 90,000 miles, it says 90,000 miles? Well, part of that, the customer has to take good care of the car, right? They got to get their tire rotations, they got to get their wheel alignment. You know, they have to make sure they do their part as well, right? The manufacturer can give the recommendation on how long it's going to last, but it's based on the customer taking care of the tire and doing the right thing. So I do think it's very important. And I think it's important because we are in a driving country. People fly, of course, but we're in a country where people drive. They don't just drive locally. They'll drive, big distances. And so I think that is very important. Do I think it's the only thing that customers should care about? No. I think there are other things they got to look at. Fuel efficiency, is it proper for the weather that you're experiencing? Are you going off-roading or not? Are you driving on the street? Mostly you're driving on gravel. Like, these are things people have to consider. So it has to be a balance of a lot of different factors, not just mileage.
I mean, from my understanding of it, in general, nutshell, for Americans, mileage is usually one of the top two priorities when it
Yeah, I
comes to
mean,
issuing.
yeah, of course, it's definitely up there. I mean, it's definitely up there. But me personally, when I look at a tire, mileage is important. But because I do a lot of driving, right? I like to know, is it quiet? Can it handle the snow? Can it handle the rain? Those are the things I care about: noise and comfort over mileage. But most people, it just depends on what their priorities are. We try to do our best in educating the customer on that.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to mileage warranty, I mean, there's this thing there, I mean, I won't call it it's a scam, but it's the way it's structured. It's a bit I mean, so let's say 50,000 kilometers in warranty, or 50,000 miles, if you put it. And I mean, if you follow the procedures by rotating the tires, I think you said every 10,000 miles or something, or 8,000 miles minimum, you have to rotate your tires, and doing one or twice or three times, or just, and then on top of that, if let's say you don't hit the 50,000 miles, so you hit 40,000 miles, you have the right to claim that 10,000 miles prorated based on your tractor, and then later on, you get a voucher to buy the same type of tire, or the same brand, I guess. So is that
Well, I'll
correct?
tell you, I'll tell you why I don't think it's a scam. Okay, let me give you a great example. How many miles do you drive a year? Do you know roughly?
20,000 miles roughly.
So in America, the average person, well, I don't want to say the average, but I want to say that when you lease a car, you get an option of a 10,000 mile per year lease, or a 12,000 mile per year, or I think it's also 16,000. Most people I know get a 12,000 per year. Now, it's not uncommon for people to do driving of like 30, 60 miles a day. Now, when you think about the difference between this country and other countries, a family that maybe doesn't want to pay for airfare are driving between, let's say, I'm giving random examples, but like Pennsylvania to, the south of Maryland, or Pennsylvania to Florida if they want to go to Disney. Like, we're in a driving country. And so when you think about it, the mileage warranty, even if it doesn't hold up 100%, let's just say hypothetically that's the case, it at least gives you a barometer of what's going to help you on your lifestyle. Now, the tire manufacturers are pitching other products, other features, right? They feature all weather now, which is very popular. They're pushing side biters on all-terrain tires. They're pitching special grooves that can help you measure the tread depth. I've seen before fuel efficiency, right? But mileage, when you're in a country where people are driving such long distances, you have to give them some barometer to hold to. Because what somebody doesn't want to do is buy a tire and then change it every year, every 2 years. So even if it's not 100%, it at least gives them some sort of benchmark to say, okay, maybe I didn't get 90, but maybe I got 80, 85, right? Or, you know, maybe mileage isn't as important. Maybe I stick to fuel efficiency. So yeah, look, if you maintain the tire, what the manufacturer says, from my experience, the manufacturer will back it up. That's been my experience. But I think customers also have to look at other things. But yeah, mileage is always going to be the number one when you look at how close all the states are to each other, right? Like we're in a big country. It's probably one of the biggest, and people do road trips on the regular here.
Understood. And it's do they look at the UTQG tracker then, or
I
it's a
don't I don't look at UTQG because if you were to ask me what I think of that, I think that is a bad barometer to look at because because you could take a tire that's a 500 UTQG with like a Michelin and a 500 UTQG with another tier 1 and they'll be different mileage, right? Because they're benchmarking against their own brand. They're not benchmarking it against other brands. So I don't look at the UTQG, but I do look at the suggested mileage warranty. So that's the difference. Now, are they going to be drastically different? No, they're not going to be drastically different, the UTQGs, but the mileage is really the best benchmark for me when I look at it.
okay. And right now, I mean, from Thai agent perspective, what is the most popular product? I mean, or product model
It, it
from
changes. I mean, it changes from season to season. I mean, right now we're doing a lot of all terrain because we're, of
yeah.
course, because look at the season we're in, right? We're in Q4. People are thinking about snow. They're moving from highway touring to all terrain. So that's right now very popular. Performance is picking up a little bit, oddly. It usually picks up more in the spring, but it's picking up pretty good now. High mileage tires sell great all year round. Now I will say right now it's dipping. Right now it is dipping. Um, right now we're seeing a big influx of all weather tires. So all weather is performing really well right now, and it typically performs well between August to the end of the year. Um, but I would say like high mileage usually is pretty good, but it dips in the second half of the year pretty much. Dips a little bit. All weather, you're seeing spikes right now of sales because everyone's doesn't. A lot of people today don't want to buy winter tires. They want to buy all weather so they don't have to change them out.
I mean, so for example, if you own a Jeep, so you mentioned HT, all-terrain tires. Do people really prefer all-terrain rather than a dedicated a studdless tire? You know,
Yeah.
it is
So yeah, so all terrain in my from what I have seen, people are buying it for two reasons. One, they like the aesthetics, like they want like the aggressive look without having
muscle
without
side.
yeah, without having the big noise behind it, right? Because when you go to a mud terrain, you're going to get a really loud tire. If you go to a rugged terrain, it's going to be a little bit quieter. You go to an all terrain, it's quieter than that. And you go to a highway tread, it's really quiet, right? So that's kind of like the measurement stick. We'll sell a lot of highway touring in the first half of the year, typically. And then the back half of the year, we're selling more of the all terrain. Now, all terrain is a mix of two things, right? Functionality, but also aesthetics. Someone that has like a Jeep, they don't want to really have a highway touring tire because they want it to look like the way that the vehicle looks. So that's kind of the difference.
Okay. And the funny thing is, when I look at the market in America, you sell three different type of winter tires. You sell the typical one we call the Middle European winter tires. You also sell studdless snow tires, and then you also sell studded tires. So studdless and studded, I understand, but why selling Middle European tires?
Well, I think that's pretty much if you look at where the trend is of the winter tire market, it's pretty much shrinking. The trend is moving away from winter tires and moving more towards all weather. That's what we have seen. I mean, there are certain winter tires you're always going to sell no matter what. Like, you're always going to sell the Bridgestone Blizzaks or the
WS
Nokian,
Nike.
the big tier one, right? Like, the industry is, what I'm saying is not me personally, not Tire Agent, but I'm saying like the industry is always going to sell the tier one winter tires because the tier one winter tires have the best branding. People know them, and you're talking about like someone's safety, right? So I'm like in this conversation now, winter tires, I'm moving Tire Agent out of the way, and I'm talking about the industry as a whole. The industry as a whole is always going to sell tier one winter tires. That'll never change. But tier two is going to struggle because tier two, if somebody is thinking to themselves like, I need a winter tire, they're probably going to go for what they have perceived to be the safest. Whether it's true or not, that's just how they're going to perceive it. If they're not going to get that, they're probably going to move to all weather because then they're thinking about saving money. And how can they keep it on their vehicle all year round? So what we used to see when I was younger is you saw studless, studdable, and studded. That's what we saw, right? Today, the amount of distributors and the amount of manufacturers manufacturing and bringing in winter tires is lessening. Like it used to be, the manufacturers kept a lot of inventory, the distributors kept a lot of inventory of the winter tires. You're not really seeing that as much. You're seeing a select group of people that typically hold the inventory, and that's about it.
I see. I mean, so if I mean, with um, I think all weather really changed the whole market for at least the Americans, right? So the
Game
most
changer.
famous tires they cross climate, yeah. So coming from an engineer point of view, they were the first to make this Three-Peak Mountain. We call it Three-Peak Mountain certified all-season tire. And then I think they swapped the compound for a high mileage, and then of course sacrificing rolling resistance, and it did extremely well in America. You know, so
Well,
one of
look,
the most.
as you know, and as I said before, I drive a lot, okay? And I try to put on all weathers when I'm in my Q4 time period, because if I'm driving a lot, I want to make sure I can cover the snow, December, January, February. So mix of Q4 and Q1. When I drive on an all weather, I know I'm going to get something that's a little bit noisier, but I know it's going to hug the road a bit more in the snow. Is it perfect? No. It's not as good as a winter tire, but it's good enough compared to a regular touring tire that I would have put on. And so for me, it's pretty much a game changer, because I'm driving all over. I want to make sure I got something good. Now, could I put on winter tires? Yes, and I do sometimes. Um, but I also don't like the noise of a winter tire when I'm driving, because especially if I'm driving long distances. If I'm driving long distances, at some point I'm going to hear the noise factor behind the winter. Whereas with an all weather, it's going to be a little bit less, and then a regular touring tire, it's going to be less than that.
I mean, strange. Usually, winter tires are actually much quieter. I mean, due to their soft compound.
Yeah,
So,
I don't. I've heard when I've driven on winter tires, it's been pretty noisy. Me personally, now maybe it's the tire I drove on, which is could be the case, but for the most part, I just find it to be much more comfortable to drive on like touring tires, and so I try to have that as like for like 3/4 of the year.
used it. And I mean, one of the thing was like in America, this I don't know maybe you can think about your history, especially you're so long in the family business. Um, was there a time where the labor costs and buying of tires are bundled up in together in one price? And you guys right now have this separated. So tires is tires, labor charge is labor charge, balancing, alignment is a separate charge. Was there a time where these are all bundled together, or as you know, it was always like this
It was
with
from.
clear
I mean,
separation?
you had. Yeah. Are you talking about brick and mortar? Or are you talking about online?
I'm talking a bit of mortar first, and then later on.
As an industry, I see some people put it together, but for the most part, I think most people break it up.
And so the reason why I'm asking, is maybe you have some advice. So in Asia, everything's bundled up, and this causes a lot of pressure when it comes to pricing, because
Yeah.
you don't have another outlet for pricing. What advice would you give the Asia retailers, to separate this? How should they not succumb to this price war and this pressure? And what kind of advice would you give them?
It's tough because you're talking about a market I'm not as knowledgeable in, right? Like the advice needs to be given based on the customer demographic, based on the customer profile, based on the market. So, unfortunately, I don't think I'd be the best person to give that advice because I'm not in the country that you're in. What I can tell you is price is obviously always going to be important to a customer, right? But service is the most important factor. If you give somebody the best price in the world, but you give them terrible customer service, they're going to lose that customer. It doesn't matter. And if you give really good customer service, they will recommend their friends and their friends will buy. And so I would say don't be as price conscious. Understand price is important, but that's only one component. of getting a customer and keeping a customer. So you got to look at the whole picture. There's no shame in not being the cheapest person as long as you have other value props that you can offer to the customer to make them want to keep coming back. Like our business, we get a lot of repeat business. That's huge for us. And we got a lot of referrals. That's huge for us. Like, do I want to be super competitive and do I want to be low cost? Yeah, of course I want to be. But I don't I'm not always going to be the cheapest on every single product all the time. Like that's just the nature of business as a whole. You can never be the cheapest on everything all the time, right? Even when I shop on other industry websites, ones that are very well known that everyone uses, right? They're not always the cheapest all the time either. It's about service. It's about how you treat the customer. It's about how knowledgeable you are. It's about how great the experience was for them to get it. Speed of delivery. Like it could be a multitude of factors. That's what people remember, and that's what will get them to keep coming back.
I mean, one thing we know that most of the top brands, online retail shops, always advertise the minimum retail price, MRP. It's sort of so I did some comparison work before for all the websites, and in the end, my conclusion is almost the same. It doesn't matter where you shop, they're always going to give you the MRP that's allowed legally,
No,
and then sometimes.
so sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say like it's a benchmark. That's what it is. It's just a benchmark. But you have to do other things, right? Like I think Map has a great place in online, okay? Because it protects the integrity of the brands. Now, as a retailer, you have to be smart enough to say, what else am I offering customers?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if you look a lot of our reviews online, a lot of people talk about speed of delivery. We have done a lot of things to make sure that we're getting people the product as quickly as possible. We have some markets we're delivering same day. I mean, we have really tried to expedite how quick people are getting the product, but we try to do it in a way that's thoughtful, that's thought out, and make sure that like we're not just delivering product, but we're delivering something beyond that, right? So we want to beat people's expectations. And that's kind of our methodology with serving the customer. You got to start with a customer-centric approach rather than a sales approach. If you're just focused on moving units, then you're missing the bigger picture, which is beyond the first purchase. It's how do you keep the customer coming back? Because when you're in a commodity business, which tires are, because tires are sold by a lot of different people, what is going to separate you? So yes, MAP is a benchmark, and on the outside you can say, well, all these retailers are the same, right? But look at our online reputation. Look at the things we offer on our website. Look how quick we deliver. Look how we service the customer after the purchase. Like those are the things people remember.
Understood. Then talking about delivery, so as I understand, you really don't have any official warehouse. How do you manage? What's the secret sauce behind managing this fast delivery?
No, we have facilities, but the facilities are used for different purposes and different reasons. So we're a hybrid of a lot of different business models. And the reason why we did that is it was about keeping the customer in mind of everything we did. We have a very good tech stack, which is how we manage a lot of different things, but we're a hybrid of a lot of different models.
Very interesting. And coming to this, so I think one of the key differentiation between you guys and the other online retail stores are this flexible financing. How do you manage this tricky slippery slope? What gets approved, what gets not approved, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we don't manage it. That's all third party companies. But on the outside, it looks like that's what differentiates us. But in reality, that's just one piece. I actually had this discussion with my leadership team the other day, and we were talking about how, People look at our website and they're like, "Oh, that's your differentiator." No, 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 no. That's one thing. That's one thing. Like, if you look at our reviews, people talk about the differentiators, which are customer service, how quick the delivery is, logistics. The payment plans is one component. It's not the whole pie. Like, there have been people that have literally tried to copy us, and they don't, and it does not work. And it doesn't work because they think that's the whole thing. It's not. That is just one component of a lot of different factors.
Okay. And if imagine this, if you can take a feature from any of your online retail competitors, what feature would you like to have?
Well, unfortunately for you for this question, my answer from before holds to now, which is I don't
Yeah,
really give a crap what people are doing. The only thing I would say is I have a tremendous amount of respect for the other online retailers because everyone has kind of carved their own niche, right? Like if you look at Tire Rack, they have created a really awesome reputation for what they're doing. And of course, they're known for the testing and stuff like that. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, and that I don't think can ever be duplicated by anyone. If you look at some of the other online guys, they've all built their own niche. Now, some of them are price oriented, some of them are website user experience oriented, but everyone has kind of carved their own thing. I don't want to copy anyone else's. I don't want to take what they're doing. That's their thing, and they can have that. That's just not what we do. We're very focused on a few core value props, and that will always be us. So whenever people ask me like, "Oh, we are you looking at other people's websites? What features do you like?" Because you're not the first person to ask me. It's like I get this all the time, and I just always say like I have a tremendous amount of respect for everyone. I really have nothing bad to say. I would just say that Tire Agent, as long as I'm running the show, will never copy people. We'll build our own pathway, and that's the way I kind of like to do it. Now, what I will say is we are working on some really cool things in the industry.
interesting.
Yeah, we have something launching next year that I'm very excited about. It's a game changer, I think, for us. Can't reveal what it is now,
Looking
but
forward to it. You know?
in Q1, I'm really hoping to get it launched, and it's going to be very much a game changer for us.
I mean, any plans for app based or you stick with website for now?
No comment.
Okay, understood.
No,
Uh,
no, no. All kidding aside, all kidding aside. Definitely have thought about it, but we have a really big initiative launching next year, so that's been my complete focus. Can I say it'll never happen in the future? I can't say that because anything's possible at any time. I keep my options open for all possibilities, is what I typically like to do. And when I have a good idea and I feel like it makes sense, then I typically will lean into it.
yeah, I've seen tech-focused tire retail sites move on from web-based to app-based, and make this transition. And I was just wondering.
You're saying app based. I thought you meant like physical location.
No, no,
No,
no, no, no.
yeah, no, 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 no. We'll never do an app. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, unless we ever come up with the idea to get people to purchase tires a lot more, maybe then we would do it. But honestly, it's just not even in my lane. I look, ideally the industry will launch tires that can last people for a very long time, and they can continue to use us for the same frequency they use now, right? But if that ever progresses and maybe like where they're using it more often, I would maybe change my mind. But as of now, an app based doesn't really make sense for an infrequent purchase.
Understood. And since the adoption of, EVs, so one thing the tire industry was really happy with EVs, heavier vehicles, much faster wear rate, Of course, customer will complain, but that's a different side of story. So EVs are actually a good news for the tire industry, from a profitability perspective. Do you see this coming up, especially, you're selling tires, and do you see more frequent? So if you are driving an EV, probably your mileage is that's running on a tire, it's way less than
Yeah,
normal.
it's like I think I read it's like 15 to 20% less if you have an EV. mostly because they can't handle the weight capacity of the vehicle. But company tire manufacturer are launching tires now that are more compatible with EV. The thing is, the question becomes how many of the independent tire shops are going to be knowledgeable enough to educate the customer on paying more money to get a tire that lasts more. And that I don't know, right? That's an unknown. Um, I just, whenever I think about an independent store, I think about the stores that I visited when I was in wholesale. And stores are usually like one or two guys at the counter, a lot of customers walking in the door, very overwhelming, kind of educating them the best they can, but they're expected to be a tire technical expert, a counter person, financing expert, customer service. Like they're expected to do everything, and it's just a lot for a person to manage in person. I can't speak to the profitability of EV tires versus not EV, but what I can tell you is if the independent shops and the chain stores are not knowledgeable enough to educate the customer on getting the right tire, then one of two things will happen. Either the customer will just assume, hey, EV sucks and it just chewed up my tire much quicker and I got to go back to the store and then they'll get the customer back. Or two, they'll think the store sold them the wrong tire, get mad, and never go back. So it's going to be one of those two things. I don't know which one it would be, but I think EV is just, it was gaining a lot of ground in this country. I don't know where it's going to go now with the way the political climate is here, so it's hard to tell on that standpoint. But I think it's too early, even though we're in the EV thing, it's still pretty early. I mean, I think it's only what, like 15% of cars on the road have EV or something like that. I don't know the exact statistic. It's not 90%, right? 90% is still run by gas. So it's so hard where it's going to go. And also EV like adoption is so tied to the political climate in a lot of ways that it's very hard to see where it's going to go.
At least from Asia side, since EV tires are actually paired with OE tires that are dry optimized, so their factor is really low to begin with. Coupled with the high load, you get something like less than 20,000 miles for a single OE tires.
Yeah.
So you can feel the pressure on the consumer. I mean, so nobody buys car thinking about tires. So I'm probably the only guy who thinks about tires when I buy a car. What's your OE, Or, and so they only like I think you mentioned before, you want to pay upfront or you want to pay later. So and most of them only realize later on, oh, okay, probably I should have choose a better tire or at least do some research on this.
Yeah, years ago, I wrote an article for a magazine about how paying more money for tires now, like getting the premium stuff, is actually cheaper than getting the least expensive. Right now, of course, tier two is that compromise, right? They're a compromise between quality and price. But the point is, you don't want to always go for the cheapest tier product because it's going to wear out. I mean, it's not going to last as well. That is the reality. That the quality is not as good. That's why you pay a premium price. You just have to, as a consumer, you have to do what you said. Do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later? And that's really what it comes down to.
And so what's in store for Tire Agent? I mean, obviously you have the big launch next year, but what's in store in the next 5 years, What's your plan? How would you like to grow it?
You know, I think about this all the time. It's the number one topic that runs through my head. Where do I want to take it in 5 years? I want to continue to do what we're doing, sticking to the principles that we built the business on, because that's what got us here, right? I don't want to get away from that. But the launch that we have next year is gonna. Remember, I said in the beginning of this conversation, every like year or few years, I kind of reinvent myself and I pivot and so forth. We're not pivoting, but we are enhancing. And the project we're working on for next year, I think, is going to really put us. One, it's going to give us a completely different differentiator, which is great. The second thing is it's going to be, I think, more relatable to customers. Like my goal, when you look at where the industry is here and where it is in Europe, okay? more people buy tires online in Europe than in America as a percentage of the population. I believe that will happen here. And my goal is to make that experience feel as similar to buying in person or easier than I can make it. And so every initiative we're doing is how do we make it easier for the customer to buy online? Where I want to take the business is to obviously be one of the biggest in the industry. That's my goal, right? But it's how we do it, and it's reinventing the experience for us that we're focused on. I know it didn't exactly answer and it sounded kind of vague, but like that's the best I can answer it without giving you
I
a
mean,
spoiler.
yeah. So I'm eagerly waiting what's happening on Q1. So I will check your website regularly. I mean, pretty sure the news will spread, and then I would we will all know by then. But yeah, I mean, thanks for at least giving some sneak preview, at least for the advantages, or at least the for perspective of it.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's all for what I have today. And I mean, thanks a lot, Jared. I mean, I'm pretty sure we have much more in Holland than what it meets the eye. I mean, I come from a technical side, so like how to design tires, compound construction, pattern, and so on. And usually, you know, the tire industry, there's I mean, I can sense a marketing BS right far from away, and because to be truth to be told, I made some of them also myself. I have to make the tire dress beautifully and also talk beautifully and so on. So now
You know
I'm
what people, you know what people don't realize? The reason why I love this industry, aside from the people, because I really do love the people in the industry, I think they're really special. Like it's a camaraderie in this industry you don't get anywhere else. But the the other thing I really love about what I do is I think the tire industry is an art. It's an art and a science. Like, and I'm not talking about selling tires. I'm talking about understanding the industry inside and out, the technical aspect, the design. Like, people don't realize what goes into it. They think of the tire industry as like this,
Black
this old
Donut.
school industry, right? But it's so much more than that. There's a real art and science to it that consumers don't always appreciate until you explain it to them. And so I love talking about this stuff. Like this is my passion.
I mean, same for me. So I look at tires all the time, and especially when testing tires. But most of the time, I'm just looking at different test data from around the world and trying to give the consumer a different perspective at the low level. So not the engineering level, but just tire A versus tire B. Which one you should choose if you have looking at the street, something like that, based on science testing.
Yeah, well, look, this is my favorite topic, and this was a lot of fun. So I'm really happy that you got to have me on here, and thank you for being patient with me.
No, no problem. All right. Thanks, Jared. And I wish you a good start of the day, and I will end my day.